All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Oregairu, Season 1, Episode 8.
Well,
right.
We are
we're at a camp.
Yes, at the camp.
Volunteering. Not of their own will. Well, at least Hachiman's not specifically.
Exactly.
He was bamboozled.
With the power of Emoto.
Yes. Yeah. This is quite strong.
Yep. But now there's this character, Surumi Rumi, that is an outcast. Yeah.
And they need to help her.
Hachiman wants to help her. Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't at all identify with her plight in any way. But then also we have Yukino and all the other characters and how they sort of butt heads over how they want to help in this situation.
Right. And it was cool to see Yukino at the end of the episode kind of give this little bit of processing time where she's like, I can't sleep.
Yep.
Kind of dealing with this whole thing. And Hachiman's just kind of like,
Okay, she's being vulnerable and opening up and stuff. Yeah, what's going on?
It was cool to see him have this moment where he was like, this isn't giving me nice girl vibe. This is giving me, like, I don't understand vibes, but I kind of get it. Yeah, because I'm observant. But, like,
this is very strange coming from Yukino.
Exactly. So, yeah, what's the next day going to bring? What are they going to do to be able to help Surumi Rumi?
Yep.
Is Hayama Hayato going to continue being the popular boy with all the kids and just being awesome there?
And will that cause even more struggle and conflict? Who knows?
Yeah. So y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. All right.
Okay.
We got our fan service episode. We got our,
among other things,
Hachiman's Keikaku Dori, but actually, Surumi took advantage of the plan to provide an even better solution.
And I really liked it because the stuff that Hachiman says, right? It's something that comes from a lot of experience, a lot of observation, right? He's a smart kid.
Yep.
But at the same time, it does have his own biases, right?
Yep.
And, you know, the whole idea of someone can only save themselves, right? But then at the same time, holding too much to the idea of it's not about the environment, it's about what you do kind of a thing, that is kind of just accepting the environment as the way it is,
right?
And that's not going to change necessarily as opposed to trying to change it.
Right.
So, okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. But then when it came right down to it, Tsurumi wanted to do it in her own way.
Yep.
So, cool. All right.
In some ways, you couldn't change the environment, Hachiman, in the way that you wanted.
Right.
You can only really change yourself.
Which felt like it was sort of making that like connection there when she just walks by him without saying anything at the end. Because it's I'm deciding that I'm not a loner anymore, right? Yep. Because
I don't need to stick around with you because you're the only person I can interact with.
Exactly.
And also, I might even see you as a little bit of not someone I'd like to associate with.
Yes, because in a lot of ways, by associating with him, not that like, oh, she can't talk to him or whatever,
right? But
if she identifies with him, that can keep her from growing because then she basically says, oh, this is my lot in life, as opposed to I can't affect change.
And also at like the really simple level, she's like, I don't want to end up like you.
Yep.
So I'm not going
to
stick around you so that I'm
not going to take cues from you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. And that's
because she doesn't know that this was his plan or anything. So he doesn't need any like gratitude to be shown towards him and stuff. I'm sure that he appreciates, praise and gratitude just like, most other people do as well. But he didn't need it from an elementary school student or what have you. That doesn't matter to him. Right. But I liked how Hiratsuka came over and kind of had a little bit of a candid conversation with him about, this was potentially the worst decision to go on, the worst route, if you will, since he likes to use those phrasings and stuff. But in some ways, it also had some of the highest chance of success.
Right.
Not success with regards to changing her, but just with the plan working.
Right. There is a reason that Hachiman did it, and it was effective. Right. But there's the possibility that even that wasn't the only reason he did it, right? Because this plan, yes, it is effective for changing Tsurumi's situation, right? Or bringing everyone else down to her level. But that also seems a bit spiteful or maybe vengeful.
It's vindictive.
Right? Because
totally is.
Yeah, because
he's getting back at society, basically.
Yep,
He's creating more loners like him.
Right, and specifically against kids. So even though these kids are little shits, right, or acting like little shits, shall we say,
totally.
right, they don't know that was all staged, right?
Yeah.
He ruined friendships that, granted, weren't necessarily great friendships from the start, but he put them under pressure that they didn't need to go under. So,
need is also a very interesting way of looking at it too, because you could say that eventually they would have had this kind of pressure with more stakes later.
Oh, okay.
But the math that they went into later brings up a really interesting aspect about the need thing, because odds are they weren't going to remain friends after elementary school anyway.
Sure.
So in some respects, it might have been good that they did this now, because later, when they approach friendships in general, they'll be a little bit more picky, if you will.
Sure, but then at the same time, pain tends to make people a bit more discerning and guarded.
True.
That doesn't necessarily mean you want to go around hurting people, right?
Oh, no. No, definitely. I would say that to call it simply just pain, though, is also just not accurate to what happened. Because introducing some element of an emotion or what have you is going to cause discomfort. But the difference between it being something which is like uncomfortable, therefore, having an element of pain in it, is different than it being something where it's like the equivalent of having a hot sauce that burns your tongue, and thus your tongue is, taste buds, you can't taste anything for a little bit, versus something that's kind of like a pinprick where you kind of go, ow, that's awkward, I'm going to move away from that, versus like, I'm going to remember this day for years now. Now, whenever I approach friends and stuff, if I sense even the slightest bit of, lack of sincerity or integrity, then, that pain is still there, and it reminds me to avoid that specific type of thing.
And which one do you think this one was?
I just don't think it's necessarily so clear-cut which one it is.
Oh, sure.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah. But I liked that Hiratsuka basically brought up the idea of like, hey, I brought you guys in this to try and do something.
Yeah.
And you did something. So good job on that regard.
Right.
But I am going to point out to you, just in case you didn't really clue in, that what you did, that was, oh boy, that was quite the choice, right?
Yeah, and in some ways though, she is kind of praising them though. The idea that they walked the tightrope, the way she says it here. The idea that there was a way this could have gone a lot worse.
Yes.
And it didn't go that route, basically. In some ways, the way we see the groups hanging out in the fire dynamic is you see the four of them, the four girls that were with Tsurumi, is
None
that
of them
they're
looking at each other.
They're still next to each other, though. They're all in the same kind of generalized area. They're not with other groups, basically. But they're awkward. They're not looking at each other.
Right.
Tsurumi is also not necessarily with their group in that she is like just kind of sitting there off to the side still.
Yep. It felt like something where it's not that Tsurumi has friends now, but that she feels basically empowered enough because of the events that happened so that she is comfortable being without friends. So that way, if friends come along, great, she can be friends with them.
Yeah.
If they don't, that's fine. But there isn't that element of bitterness that Hachiman has, basically. Because she was able to finally basically show herself and her grit, her merit to these other kids,
even though they didn't deserve
it. And if that doesn't make them want to be friends with her, that's fine. She might not necessarily want to be friends with them either, but at least she was able to basically communicate and communicate in a way that they couldn't help but receive. What they do in response, who knows? So,
and I love that was something that Hachiman did not plan for.
Right.
This was something that showed the strength of character within Tsurumi, in that when she saw the situation, she's like, well, hold on. This isn't right.
Yep.
What they're doing here, these high schoolers, they're being bullies right here. I'm not going to stand for that. Even though I don't like these girls, I'm going to basically put myself on the line in order to protect them. I'll be their hero for tonight. They probably won't necessarily like give me anything great for it. But in the moment, they're going to feel how like I've felt all this time and wished that they had some, how I wished I had someone that could come in and help me out like that. But that's not how life is really, or it's not how life is most of the time. It does happen.
Right. And what are you going to do if there is no one?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to take care of yourself? Well, these girls might not be able to for a little bit of time. And that's where the worst kind of aspect of the situation is that these girls, like you were saying, did not have necessarily the most fun they could have this summer festival in that regard.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because one of the things that I was wondering if it was going to end up getting brought up. Now, granted, it was all something that was staged, so it probably wouldn't go that far. But one of the most common things that will make someone become a bully is when they've been bullied, right? Oh. Because then it's this is how they can get power, right? It's the friends that are getting sort of voted out of the group, and so everyone else goes along with it because they don't want it to be them, right?
Gotcha. Sure.
So in this situation here, the older kids show up, and suddenly, Tsurumi's friend group is in the same. Not the same. Well, in another kind of bad situation, right? Where because they are lacking in some regard. They're younger. And older kids, they're bigger, and they just don't like you. They could hurt you. Like that's something that could happen as a result of your actions, right?
Totally.
So there's this sense of like remembering their own mortality, basically. And hopefully kids wouldn't have to deal with that. But hey, hard lesson. There you go. But because it ended up getting stopped by Tsurumi and everything, because they still think that this was real, right?
Oh,
so
totally.
I wouldn't. So as a result of that, they will have the same kind of responses to this event as if it had actually happened. Now, the fact that it was ended rather quickly, hopefully it won't cause any kind of lasting negative effects on them as people, but it potentially could have.
It potentially could.
Because Hachiman was legitimately terrifying these kids.
Oh, yeah.
And,
and he pit them against each other, which is something that in social dynamics in general, that is something that is, it's really malicious to see it being done in real time. Like it's, what I'm saying is it's hard to see it as anything but when you're in the moment and seeing it in real time.
Right.
I have seen in moments where verbal abuse is going on. And it is one of the most like disgusting things where you are like, I have to speak up. I have to do something here. What's amazing about that kind of setup is that he basically unintentionally, necessarily, I don't even know if he did, but maybe Yui sensed that was something that was going to happen. But Tsurumi was basically given the opportunity to be better than them, to be superior on the social hierarchy, if you will, by being just a better person, taking the high road.
Sure.
But I love that at the end of the episode, we had the goodest boy of the popular kids, Hayami Hayato, who's all, perfect and just, I just got it figured out. Everyone loves me. Had a reminder of when he was in this situation and he didn't do anything.
Right.
And it was one of those things that made him question, a lot.
Yep.
To the point where he was like, yo, what would have happened if you and I had gone to the same school? As kids and stuff. And he's like, there would have been one more loner in the corner. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's things like this that really make me enjoy the side characters in this show because Hachiman is a fantastic main character, right?
Oh, definitely.
He has a very I want to say limited perspective, but that doesn't quite feel right. He has a
very strong perspective.
Right, exactly. He has a very strong perspective, and as a result of that, he doesn't get too much variation in sort of thought process, right? He has a way that he perceives the world, and that's kind of how it is, right?
Yeah.
And with the two main girls, they don't make him question that too much because Yukino is fairly similar to Hachiman in sort of the feeling of the outcast, but of a different type, and her response to it is different and things like that.
And she's very strong with her viewpoints.
And very strong with her viewpoint. And then Yui is kind of the reverse of Yukino in that side, in that sense, where she is so flexible, soft with her perspective that she won't, unless there's, very good reasons, motivation, she won't really rub up against Hachiman's way of looking at things, right? But then you have side characters like this where they're so completely different. Hachiman wouldn't even normally be friends with these people. But because of the circumstances of the show that sort of force them to be in, proximity to each other, they have these interactions, and then we can see how, even if Hachiman isn't willing to see things from their point of view, right? Some of the things that
Hiratsuka?
No, that Hayama. Hayama was saying, they're kind of lost on him, right? But eventually, they might start chipping away at these kinds of like deep-held beliefs that he has that are in response to the pain that he's experienced.
Yeah, I think I've been getting his name wrong a bit. It's either Hayama or Hayami.
Gotcha.
I think I messed up something there in that regard.
Oh.
But if anything, I'll go back and check on it in some ways. But yeah, the blonde popular boy Hayato, I've got that part right at the very least. But okay, yeah, the side characters are surprisingly continuing to surprise us, if you will.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that's tricky about side characters in shows like this is that usually they only get their spotlight in their introductory episode, and they kind of just give their shtick line every once in a while.
And shticks aren't bad necessarily, but
they're just so limited.
Right.
They're just so limited, especially on a character-driven show where there's so much more potential you could have by not giving all the focus just to the main three characters.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially since this show is so heavily focuses on the idea of the social dynamics and things like that of just people in general in different, age groups and walks of life and things like that. Having more characters that we can then see how they respond to things and see how they act is just that's helpful. That's really helpful.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wanted to look up something that was kind of funny. The
misanfectionate.
Komachi basically combined misanthropy and affectionate, basically to have a misanthropy is basically a dislike of humankind, and she combined that with affectionate, so he's got a dislike for all affection and humankind.
Right, but he's showing affection through his misanthropy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And his little thing of like, don't just make up words that don't exist to describe to diss me, basically.
Yep.
I love it. Because every time Komachi is brought into the story, just a little bit more of genius sneaks out of her character. And I'm like, I saw that.
Her dialogue is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because she's a very meta character.
Totally,
like of all of the characters in the show, I think she might be the most
How many points is that, Big Brother?
Right. How many points is that, Big Brother? And like doing all the poses and everything. And it's like, oh, God.
How do I look?
Yeah, right, exactly. But also... it makes sense because since she's the sibling, and he's the older sibling, so it makes sense that she would kind of not necessarily look up to him, but
she
in some ways, but then also because she has that closer perspective, she can see some of his flaws and everything. Yeah. She also pokes at them,
definitely.
Like in a lot of ways.
It's fun for her at some level.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's what siblings are for. If you don't shit on each other a bit, what are you doing?
Right.
But that's a way that Hachiman can get more feedback basically on the way that he perceives the world. Because, like the whole thing with when Tsurumi walked past him, the teacher learning, like alongside the students or sometimes even more than the students, like there was an opportunity here for Hachiman to learn because of how Tsurumi responded to him, but then also to the friends in the encounter that they set up, right? But, he's a stubborn fellow.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
I loved Yukino's little thing of acknowledging that, you may have picked the worst possible method, but you set the table for the good thing to happen. So
right.
good job, you know, and kind of giving him basically the hey, you didn't get a reward or praise or anything for this thing there, but I think you're allowed to glean at least one good thing out of it. And
then they bring him in for the fireworks.
Yeah. And she didn't get to communicate necessarily what that was.
Oh, okay.
So I think that the fireworks thing could have been that.
But maybe she was trying to lead into something?
I think she was trying to lead into something because he was basically prompted to respond, I think, there.
And then there was an interruption.
Because I think he was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Yui is like, oh, fireworks! And we don't finish that conversation.
Right. As direct as Yukino is, she is very indirect when it comes to Hachiman.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because...
I wonder why.
Yeah. And also, I gotta say, I think that little line there, just if I want to hyper focus on it just a little bit, it is the last thing essentially that they have as a little moment together.
Oh, yeah.
Before summer break, because it was them alone. And so this is the second time during this little, camp thing that they had a little conversation alone.
Yep.
Where
and then after that, she gets whisked away by her family.
Right, where the last one was one where she sought him out.
Sure. Yeah,
even though the first one was an accident,
Yeah.
It seemed like that was kind of a theme of the summer camp, was that they bumped into each other alone a lot at different instances there.
But then the sister shows up.
Sister Haruno. I love her so much. She is the perfect.
Yeah.
She's the perfect needle. Like, so,
right.
So what I want to kind of almost condense her character into this one idea.
Oh, I don't think she'll like that.
She is She is a needle, a sewing needle. She's going around poking into people's lives, sewing connections between things.
Okay.
Whether they like it or not.
Oh, it'll be over quickly.
Yeah. Don't worry. It's the idea of its pain. That it's like, but it's so small.
It pierces, it's just...
Yeah. You won't notice it. You won't feel it. The problem is that if you don't, clean that shit out, it gets infected.
Well,
and I think that's what her life has been, is that she goes around not even necessarily aware of what she's doing all the time. I think she is mostly aware.
Yeah, but aware that she's doing it, but maybe not the full effect of it.
Exactly. I think she's aware of the poking, but not necessarily the infection. Because when I saw Hiratsuka... basically give the most tired response of leave it at that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is juicy.
In the two lines that she gave, leave it at that, and then don't call me Shizu, or stop calling me that.
Without looking at her.
With those two lines, Hiratsuka as a character jumped 2 or 3 pegs.
Oh, of course.
For me, as far as characters in the show, because I love it when there are discovered sort of connections between characters, not not
necessarily good ones.
Well, not necessarily good ones. Not the kind of ones where it's in the I don't know, the Western TV show where it's the everyone is related to everyone because it's the your grandfather is the
thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's soap opera stuff. But when it's the someone shows up and 2 people that you didn't expect to know each other actually do, and then there's stuff there.
There's tension.
Yeah, there's tension there. It's great. I love it because
it's fantastic,
because it's just it's more ways to just make everything connected, so that way because tension doesn't stop with one connection point, right? It then also tugs on. It's a spider web, right?
Yep.
And it travels for a long time. So
and she is a spider. She is a spider. She has, I call her Needle because I would say that's what she sees herself as well. I don't think she sees herself as a spider. I think she looks at this needle and she's like, I'm perfect. I'm gleaming. I'm glistening. I'm bedazzled. Oh my God. I'm going to sew so many beautiful relationships together and they'll all come through me. Me. And now this is me waxing a bit silly in a way here, but the root of that is basically kind of like a spider.
Yeah.
Someone who goes along and dances on the web of other people's connections, traps other things within that.
Sure.
Weaves it to be bigger and bigger and bigger and constantly, and then feeds off of that.
And
because you saw how she acted with them in the mall. She was practically like, oh, this
sure.
is so juicy. I can't wait to
But,
get into this.
But this
like,
is one of the reasons
that you come into this.
Oh, yeah. But one of the reasons why I love this interaction here, and I think this interaction was needed, is because with that interaction in the mall, it was a great interaction, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was a fantastic introduction to a character. I liked to see how Yukino and Haruno interacted and all that stuff and how Hachiman responded and everything. It's great. But Yukino and Hachiman are very similar as far as their blind spots and their biases and everything, right?
Yep.
So having just them interacting with Haruno, that's one thing.
That's one thing, exactly.
Having Hiratsuka sensei just be like it's like the trash showed up, you know, like you know, it's like what the garbage people were supposed to pick you up a while ago. Why are you still here, right? Like, you know,
and do you remember the line that was like an innocuous line of, you don't know how scary girls can be?
Oh yeah, no, I know. Yep, yeah. This is the example of that. So by having Hiratsuka call it out like this, something where we know that it's more likely to be an unbiased third party, right? Because
it's
family,
familiar.
It's familiar, but it's not family because family can get all kinds of complicated.
Right.
Two, it's someone that, for all her issues with, you know, allusions to her age and such, she is a fairly stable, you know, person when you factor out the, you know, the tropes, the punching tropes and things like that, and the how dare you mention my single status and that kind of stuff, right? So having her be basically the vetting system of, yes, it is something that plays into the biases of some of our main characters, but they're right.
But they're also right at times. I think that's the part that makes Hachiman a very fascinating character to also get a little bit in-depth into, because you can be a contrarian to Hachiman for the sake of focusing on the parts where he's unhealthy.
Sure.
You get actually a lot of info, I would say, by looking at Hachiman's observations as if they're 100% accurate, because then you realize which parts are easier for you to believe, like which parts are confirmed with your biases as a person as well. But when you choose the contrarian route with basically disagreeing with everything Hachiman says for the purpose of
or at
testing the arguments to see if they
trying to figure out what the vector of bias is that you can subtract from it.
Right. It becomes mathematical. Exactly. There's a difference that kind of floats up to the surface and you go, ooh, there's a bigger difference on this one there than that one. Why is that? And then you look at the character as a whole and there's some interesting things that pop up. But like you said, if we have a third party that was her teacher for probably all of high school, because given that Hiratsuka is around the age of 30, it is very easy to extrapolate out that for the last, 5 years, she's been a teacher as well.
Sure.
That totally flies with me.
Maybe
I know
more.
20-year-olds that are teaching at high school or something like that. And it's like, wow, that's
how we get
intense.
the plot of Domestic Girlfriend. Wait.
No, that's okay, but you're not wrong necessarily. But with her being a teacher probably for at least some portion of the time, given that she said,
and she might be on the wrong side of 30, given that how sensitive a topic that is for her.
Yeah, possibly, that would make sense that Hiratsuka spent a lot of time not only with her as her student, with Haruno as a student, but enough time to which Haruno got under her skin and Hiratsuka never fully got past that.
Right.
I think what they're using this for personally, given the fact that Haruno seems to have everything going for her. She has a lot of things, I would say, on the surface that make her seem like the most put together in a lot of ways as all the characters do in this show. But I think that's just maybe not all of it, but a lot of it is a very well-crafted mask that we are now getting extra confirmation on, finally, from a character who probably was on the receiving end of some bullying. And I want to go out on a limb and just guess and say that part of the shtick that Hiratsuka has for this was perpetuated by Haruno.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd totally be down for that. Yeah. Because the impression that I got before, and this might just be initial assumption that was denied basically, or whatever by what happened in the episode, but I'm still kind of holding on to it. So, hold this with I'm holding this with an open hand. But the initial impression that I got was almost this idea of like being exes, where and maybe this is just completely out of left field or something, but before the whole idea of them, her originally being the teacher was brought up,
right?
It felt like this kind of a thing of they were, even if it's not exes in like a romantic way per se, the idea that they were at one point really close.
They trusted each other.
There was a trust, and then there was a breaking of that trust, right?
Oh, that I 100% I 100% buy the trust angle, because I could definitely see Hiratsuka having a point where she thought she could be friendly with her students.
Yep. And
especially the older ones, where it's like,
exactly.
I mean, what is it, like a 8-year, maybe 7-year age gap?
Who knows?
Not that big, really.
And especially if her own age is something that she's insecure about. It's no, I'm still young. I can still hang out with, the hello fellow kids,
Right. Like, for example, me, I am 29, but regardless of whether y'all believe that. Right. Like, do I look like I could be friends with 22, 23-year-olds? Probably, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't look 29. I look like a baby and stuff. It's the lack of facial hair.
But really just, I don't know what it is, but not just for you or anything, but I'm glad I have facial hair, because otherwise I would look like a baby. I would look like a baby.
Yes, you're blessed, my friend. It's some raw masculine testosterone. But in that angle, I can definitely see where Hiratsuka might have essentially gotten hurt via a connection with a student that she was at the very least maybe wanting to be there for and help, which is interesting because, we started off with Hiratsuka already having Yukino being a part of the club.
That's true.
Who's to say that the reason she's in the club is because they share a common connection and relationship with a past student of Hiratsuka's.
So I mentioned with the whole idea of like surprise connections and people knowing each other that makes everything connected and like a spider web. It just gets all crazy. But we also got that. Well, we've been getting that with this show just in general, right? With things like Yui being the one that like he saved her dog, right, and all that stuff, really good stuff. But then also with the whole idea that, Yukino's parents' car, I guess, was the one that almost hit Yui's
let's talk about
dog.
That.
So that it doesn't necessarily have to have some crazy meaning. It can just be like, hey, asshole chauffeur or whatever, please don't, look out, keep an eye out for when there's dogs on the street, right? But it could also mean all kinds of other things. I don't know.
I think the worst implication, is that there's some level of blame or negativity that's going to be thrown around between our main three characters.
Okay.
But I don't think that's going to happen. What I think will more likely happen is that Hachiman knows that that's the car. Like, that's the car. He confirmed it. He's like, I pretended like I didn't know, but he's like, I know.
Knew immediately that's the car, yeah.
But if we're following this revelation up with Yukino does not interact with them for the rest of summer break.
That's,
well, by the laws of romantic comedies, if you push one of the main people in the triangle out, all of a sudden, because of dramatic family drama, well, then that means that the other two have to figure out how to spend time together in the meantime. Which will be misinterpreted by Yukino as potentially being something that he has against her and her family or anything like that, which could make it slow for them to repair things.
Gotcha. Because
that's my weird kind of projected theory.
The impression that I got, and maybe this could just be because of Haruno, right? Because Haruno definitely likes to meddle in other people's affairs, right? But is that there's an acknowledgement from a lot of the characters in the show that Yukino is essentially the main girl, right? And that might be because she's
on
the one
a meta level.
On a meta level,
Yeah,
because,
I see what you're saying.
Because, and it might be because she comes from wealth and status. She was introduced first.
Yep.
Or just because she has a pushy older sister that's basically like, she's the main character, right? You know,
right.
Like, yeah, you two are a thing. Oh, you're not? And then she ended up mentioning like, oh, Yui, are you his girlfriend? Which almost felt like it was a thing of like pushing her away of like, are you guys dating?
It was, totally.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I would have to do something to you.
Right,
Like,
and she
no,
totally
what a joke.
says it
Haha.
in like the sort of
Jest.
Yeah, jesting way. But you know, one that's just
We protect Yui in this house.
we protect Yui in this house.
Yui in this house.
Because one, that's just a straight up rude thing to do. If there
It's
is,
very rude, yeah.
If there is, you know, some kind of, you know, crushing thing or whatever, because you're not
Yeah.
close to this person, so you don't have permission to do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fine, you know, amongst friends or whatever. But you know, but then on top of it, you come from a wealthy, powerful family.
Right.
Those things. You could actually do something if you wanted to.
Do you realize what this show did?
What?
With regards to the high school students staging the bullying there? They repeated it here almost. Haruno came in, the older kid essentially, bullied them around a little bit to split them up. To cause a break in connections, even though that wasn't some grand scheme or anything. She just came in and was herself and threw all this extra tension.
It just comes naturally to her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Batch, you know, and then we have our hero, Hirotsuka. Basically, just being like, no, not yet. In the name of the do not want. Exactly. Our meme phrase. Exactly.
Yep.
But I almost think that was a repeat of sorts, but it was a more real life version of what usually happens. It's usually not so like right-handed power, strong, like you must split up now, otherwise you got 10 seconds. You know?
Right.
Like, and of course, they're kids. They thought it was real.
And it's during the test of courage where they're like, you know, it's dark and late at night and everything, and oh shit, and you know, the one person that we thought would help us all of a sudden is being really scary. So you know, that was a good way to help sell it.
Yeah, Haruno is outnumbered in this case, and outgunned and out prepared and all this stuff. In that we had lots of people there that kind of all went and shielded each other and gave their hell no responses and everything. And yeah,
but I feel like it's the thing of where she's like, oh, that just makes it more fun for me, because you say she's a needle. I almost see her I imagine she sees herself as a fencer of the social
the same
right?
thing.
Yeah, basically a needle, right?
Yeah.
You know, precise, dexterous, and you know, pierces, right?
Yeah.
So she's just like, oh yeah, but y'all are clumsy, you know, with your clubs and things like that. No. I'm just fine. So I like that now. I feel like I have permission, sort of, in my own mind to really hate Haruno.
I love characters like this done well.
I love to hate her, and there's also this part of me that's like, oh, but I could totally see this show doing something where then it's but it's not so simple,
right?
You know,
right?
Like,
again, it's still a thing where just because we see a character acting a certain way in their flaws, as if people who are not our main cast have no flaws. No, this show has been anything but that, of saying how
Everyone's got
imperfect
tons of flaws.
everyone is.
Yep.
And actually how incapable so many of these people are of actually solving their problems with their flaws. They need the club, essentially, to come in and give them some tactical help.
Exactly. Also, we got a Ragio this episode. Like, and not really, because that's a very strong word right there.
Are we going there right now?
No, but
we haven't even met her yet.
No, I know. But this is all based off of an impression I got. But
you have watched all of Kill la Kill recently, so
yeah. Haruno got in the back of the car.
Well, yeah.
Right. But Haruno said that she came here to pick her up. As if it was like something that she was doing, she was deciding to do. But it wasn't. She was doing it on behalf of Mom. because mom's waiting.
Right. I think that's just a turn of the phrase of just the fact that she was the one that showed up. So she came here to pick you up.
Right.
But she, of course, didn't make the decision to...
No, I know. But the way she presented it at the beginning seemed like, oh, you weren't, we couldn't get a hold of you or whatever, so I came to pick you up, something like that. Like, this is something I'm doing. I'm going to do all this social fencing and things like that. Mm-hmm. But then, at the end of the day...
She drops the big... Yeah.
Yeah, she drops basically the big thing of, okay, I can't get you to come along, but I know she can. Mm-hmm. All right, now join me as we both get in the back of the car and get driven by somebody that's not like, the mom wasn't even in the car, right?
Right.
Like it didn't seem like it.
That's just they're just their chauffeur.
Yeah, exactly, right? And now we'll just go off and, oh, well, your friends won't see you for, a long time. Like, so, yeah. And then the whole idea of like the fact that they didn't see Yukino for the rest of summer break. That could be. There are a couple of things that I can think of. One, that it's because there was some like big high status, high society event or something like that Yukino was basically shirking in order to do this thing with her friends. And then the parents are like, hey, that's not cool. We do need you here. So you got to be here. And then it ends up being this thing that takes the summer. Or, and I think that's low likelihood of that one being the thing that happens.
I agree, yeah.
And then the other one is, no, you did something you weren't supposed to. So now... you're grounded. You can't leave. You are captive, essentially, right? And of course, she's in high school and all that stuff, so getting grounded, that happens. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if we had like a Pacifica Northwest bell ringing, like, at some point, like
God, I love that show.
Like up to that, basically, So, yeah,
that could be pretty cool. And also, the threat of parents in a show that's about high school is I'll just say it's a very rare thing in anime to do seriously.
Right.
Oftentimes in anime, when you have the romantic comedy in high school or this kind of thing, it's tricky to bring the parents involved and have them be serious characters in the story. And
also be positive characters in the story. Usually I feel like when they're brought up, it's because they're an obstacle that needs to be surpassed. Because
but that's high school, up,
well, right. Growing up, you have to, fully cut the umbilical cord, become your own person, and that's growing up, right?
Right.
But the instances where the parents are like a positive force,
like in Anohana with like the dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's very rarely brought up, I feel like.
True.
Usually then they just won't focus on them because there's no reason to bring them up into the story. It's just sort of, Yeah,
there has to be conflict there or I can't bring them into the story.
Exactly. Why are they there?
But I feel like by having this happen so early in the story overall, this feels like a very hard setup for the introduction of Yukino's parents. Yeah. Because who's to say then just because, Hachiman's the main character, that we have to see things entirely from his perspective. Right. Although they kind of do generally tend to focus on things from his perspective only.
So yeah, this was the other reason that I just realized now that's why, as sad as I am to say it, it seems like they're setting up Yukino to be the main girl, other than just the fact that she was introduced first. We've seen her sister, and we've gotten hints about her family. Who is Yui's family? No idea, right? And it could just be that there won't be conflict there, but also could be there's not going to be conflict there because...
It could also be that literally...
It doesn't matter if we meet them.
Right, it could also be that literally in the next stage of the story, Yui focus, bam!
Yeah.
We're going to get like 150%
Yukino is moved
Yui,
out for the rest of summer break, so, then boom, we get a, mini arc or whatever where they're hanging out a bunch. Who knows, right?
I would appreciate that specifically because Yui has had so much character development that it is cool to see her not only being self-aware about things about how it is exhausting trying to please everyone, like she mentioned in the episode, but also just being a little bit more comfortable just around, just all types of people, like all types of people in the story and stuff like that. And then acting in ways that are contradictory to something that like Hachiman has, going a certain way. Like she was the one that held him back from ending the plan early.
Yeah. And when,
and because she did that,
exactly.
Time.
And when she was going up to talk to Tsurumi, when they were swimming and everything, she was, affecting Hachiman's ability to have his eyes be staring in a particular direction, So.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man, this show is like a waifu tier list within itself.
I know,
like,
I know.
It's so crazy
but it's,
how many shows we've been watching recently that are like that. It's just fun to have it's just fun to have a show like Monogatari have like even the slightest bit of competition in this area.
Oh, with just the amount of characters that are awesome.
Well, just like literally like a waifu tier list, basically.
Yeah.
In that regard, yeah.
Yeah. Yui's not gonna win, but I hope she does. Like either way, I will be happy. You know, like I will enjoy the ride and everything. But I'm rooting for her.
Yeah,
So.
I think that it's fun to root for the character that you know is not going to win.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge that fun. So I'm with you, but I think I'm in the protect squad. I feel like the main thing I want for her is to have the most development out of every one of the side characters primarily. Because Hachiman is the one that needs to have the most character development because he's the main character. But I would say that Yui has so much opportunity to change because of how flexible she is. Her thing that was a weakness will become a strength. I 100% believe it.
So I'm going to throw out the opposite opinion here.
Ooh, okay.
I think actually the one that needs to have the most development is Yukino. Here's why.
Okay.
One of the main reasons why I ship Yui and Hachiman is because Yukino and Hachiman I feel are too similar. If they get into a relationship, I feel like their similarities will overlap a lot, their blind spots will overlap, and then it could become stultified, right?
That's assuming no changes.
That's assuming no changes, which is why I'm
the main character you're talking about.
Right,
here.
right. So if she's the main, that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited because if she's
Hachiman.
Yes, Hachiman is totally going to change.
Right,
but also with Yukino, if she is the sort of main girl from the get-go and the rest is obfuscation with Yui, then that means that they're going to give her a lot of time and focus, which means there's a lot of good stuff in store. So I'm excited for that. But I feel like that would need to happen. Whereas with Yui, I feel like because her and Hachiman are very different, if they're able to establish a good means of communication and like all of that, then the relationship between the two of them would end up going better.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Problem is that outside of the sexual attraction that he has for Yui, he does not like her at all. Like I can see the areas in which
he has attraction for Sai, but we know that's not going to happen in the show. Like, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's
not going to be some surprise upset. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see this show being really meta, but and subverting a lot of expectations. But I think the one area that it's probably not going to subvert expectations on is Yukino. Specifically.
Yeah.
The more and more we get into it, it makes sense. But that's not, I would say, the point of a romantic comedy.
Sure.
It is not about who they're going to end up with.
It's the
Despite
journey.
what the shippers may say, it is about the journey. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, the struggle. So struggle on, struggler. We're talking to you, Yui.
Oh man, I almost wanted to use, and I know that you guys probably hate me for saying this, but I almost wanted to use a domestic girlfriend as a reference. If we knew that Rui would end up being the main girl. Ending present. So this episode was great. I'm excited to see what happens next. And Haruno, I love to hate you.
Yeah. But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general. And also, be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
Yes, we have a Twitch channel. It's in the description. We stream from Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific time for each of those days. Mondays, we do podcasts. Tuesdays, One Piece dramatic manga readings.
Yes.
Wednesdays and Fridays, Caleb does gaming.
Yep, I'm playing Hades right now.
And then on Thursdays, I do gaming, which right now is Persona 4 Golden.
Yes, if any that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.